The Alcatraz escape has stunned the world for over 60 years, but has the truth finally been revealed in 2025? Three prisoners, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind papier-mâché dummy heads, a handmade tunnel, and a series of unanswered questions. Do you think these three inmates truly escaped from the impregnable fortress, or did they meet their fate in the freezing waters? Leave a 1 if you believe they survived, and a 0 if you think they drowned in San Francisco Bay. Inside the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, commonly referred to simply as the Rock, stands as a symbol of the U.S. government's most extreme approach to incarceration. Located on a small island 1.25 miles off the coast of San Francisco, Alcatraz was originally a military fort in the 1850s before being converted into a federal prison in 1934. Managed by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, it was designed to house inmates deemed too dangerous or rebellious for other facilities. From its inception, Alcatraz was considered the end of the line, a high-security prison with minimal privileges, designed for the most incorrigible inmates. The prison facility itself was an engineering and security marvel. The main cell house, built between 1910 and 1912, featured 4 blocks of cells, a dining hall, a hospital, a library, and administrative offices. The cells were small, bare, and made from impenetrable steel. Inmates were counted up to 13 times a day, and the guard-to-inmate ratio was the lowest in the country. Metal detectors, tear gas canisters, and armed guards in elevated gun towers were used to enhance security at every turn. Access to privileges like work, visitation, and even talking during meals had to be approved, making daily life both strict and mentally taxing. With a capacity of about 312 inmates, Alcatraz was rarely at full capacity. It housed some of the most notorious criminals, such as Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly. The most dangerous prisoners were sent to D Block, home to the Hole, isolation cells infamous for their harsh conditions. The prison practiced strict racial segregation with the sole purpose of control rather than rehabilitation. During its 29 years of operation, the prison underwent major upgrades, such as the installation of electrified fences, modern locking systems, and improvements to enhance security in the 1930s and 1940s. Alcatraz was closed on March 21, 1963, primarily due to the high cost of maintenance and the deteriorating condition of the buildings caused by corrosion from salt water. However, it is this legacy that captures the imagination. Today, under the management of the National Park Service, Alcatraz has become a museum, attracting over 1 million visitors each year. The refurbished areas offer a glimpse into what was once considered the most rigid prison in the United States, a stronghold where the line between punishment and survival often blurred. Its walls were strong, but its legend was even stronger, until one night that changed everything. The legend of the inescapable rock, Alcatraz, is not just about a prison. It is a symbol. Located on a wind-battered island in San Francisco Bay, it became the final word in America's incarceration system. Alcatraz was not only a place for serving time. It was where the system sent the inmates it had given up on. The design of the prison, its isolation, and its harsh routines created a legend that escaping was not only impossible, but unthinkable. This belief was not just folklore, but was reinforced by statistics. Over its 29 years of operation, no one was ever confirmed to have escaped. In the 14 recorded escape attempts, most were captured or killed, with a few disappearing into the waters, presumed drowned. The dangerous currents, frigid temperatures, and the vast distance from shore made the bay an insurmountable final barrier. Attempting to escape was, by many standards, a death sentence. This image of complete captivity was essential to Alcatraz. It's not just about locking people up, it's about destroying any idea of escape. The guards, officials, and the public all believed in the myth that the rock was inescapable, and that myth reinforced the prison's power. That power began to be challenged in June 1962. At around 10:30 to 11 p.m. on the night of June 11, 1962, 3 inmates escaped from their cells and vanished: Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin. This escape sparked a moment of self-reflection. The moment Alcatraz was beaten, it was knocked down from its pedestal. The psychological shockwaves were immediate. Once a fortress, it was now just a mystery. But this time, unlike before, the mystery remained. Now the lack of a clear conclusion has sown doubt, then fascination, and finally a story bigger than this prison itself. So far, the 1962 escape is not just an event. It's a turning point in Alcatraz's mythology. The question of whether those men lived or died remains a mystery. The only thing known is that their disappearance cracked America's myth, one the nation had carried for decades. The crack in the rock let the legend seep out. Frank Morris, the mastermind. Frank Lee Morris wasn't your average inmate. He was a seasoned criminal with a brilliant mind and a history of escapes, the very kind of person Alcatraz was built to contain. Orphaned at age 11 and convicted by 13, Morris spent much of his youth in foster homes and juvenile institutions. His unstable early life hardened him, but it also sharpened his instincts. With a criminal record that included armed robbery, drug possession, and multiple successful escapes, Morris was transferred to Alcatraz in January 1960 after breaking out of the Louisiana State Penitentiary. From the moment he arrived, he was already thinking about how to escape. While at Alcatraz, Morris was placed near inmates John and Clarence Anglin, as well as Allen West, men he had met during his time at other prisons. With cells close to each other, these men could whisper to one another at night, quietly forming one of the most meticulously planned escape teams in history. Morris naturally took on the role of leader. His intelligence and escape experience made him the mastermind behind the plan that would shake Alcatraz's reputation to its core. Unlike others who had tried and failed, Morris aimed to execute the plan flawlessly. His team spent months chiseling away at the damaged concrete beneath the ventilation holes under their sinks. They stole metal spoons, used saw blades, and created a drill powered by a vacuum cleaner to carve holes in the decaying concrete. Morris made fake vents using papier-mâché and paint from materials stolen from the library and the maintenance shop to cover up their activities. Even the noise from the drilling was carefully managed. Morris played the accordion during music hour, using the sound of the instrument to mask the noise of the digging. There was no improvisation here. It was undoubtedly a well-thought-out plan, proving that Morris was truly skilled in tactics. This escape was not just a jailbreak. It was a direct challenge to the legend of Alcatraz's invulnerability. By stitching together over 50 raincoats to create a 14-foot raft and using life jackets, along with a heat gun to seal rubber sheeting, Morris and the Anglin brothers defied gravity itself. They even turned a concertina wire into a makeshift air pump. Although reports claimed they drowned, no bodies were ever found, and a 2013 letter contained some compelling evidence to the contrary. Whether Morris died in the bay or lived out a secret life in hiding, his escape was undoubtedly the most clever breakout in Alcatraz's 30-year history, proving that even the rock could be broken. The Anglin brothers. John and Clarence Anglin were not just two inmates serving time. They were brothers bound together by hardship, loyalty, and a fierce desire for freedom. Born into a poor farming family in rural Florida, they were part of a large family of 13 siblings and grew up learning how to survive together. This brotherly bond became the foundation for their famous escape from Alcatraz. Their criminal lives, primarily revolving around bank robberies, led them to Atlanta Penitentiary, where their repeated escapes became such a problem that prison officials eventually sent them to Alcatraz, the so-called final island for troublemakers. It was at Alcatraz that the Anglin brothers reunited with Frank Morris, whom they had met during previous incarcerations. The Anglin brothers were placed in adjacent cells to Morris and Allen West, allowing them to communicate and collaborate secretly. With Morris as the mastermind of the plan, the Anglin brothers became essential hands in the escape effort. For months, they helped dig through the decaying concrete using metal spoons and saw blades. While Morris led the technical side of the plan, the Anglin brothers focused on logistics and concealment, creating vent covers from papier-mâché to hide the holes they had dug and collecting materials from their prison labor jobs. This was crucial in helping them prepare the escape equipment for the breakout. They also helped Morris prepare the life jackets and a massive 14-foot raft made from over 50 stolen raincoats. The prison's heat gun sealed the rubber, while an improvised concertina was used to pump air into the raft. Another crucial aspect was understanding the prison's daily routines and the materials available through the factory system. But every action they took was meticulously planned, with their escape route carefully concealed behind another well-crafted illusion, including the dummy heads they helped create from soap, toilet paper, and real hair swept from the barbershop floor. The events that followed their disappearance remain one of the most intriguing mysteries in American criminal history. Evidence has emerged supporting the idea that the Anglin brothers survived even after their legal death declaration in 1979. In addition to the 2013 letter suggesting they were in hiding, there were Christmas cards from the Anglin brothers that were seized, and even a 1975 photograph that appeared to show them in Brazil. Prison officers and family members, in an interview with the BBC, recalled the event as a shocking and eerily silent one, with no noise and no alarms going off that night. If the Anglin brothers survived, They not only carried out a physical escape, but also a psychological one, casting a shadow over a prison designed to be escape-proof, and even over history itself. Creating the illusion. The brilliance of the 1962 Alcatraz escape wasn't just in the digging or raft building, it was in the illusion. One of the key elements that allowed Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers to disappear without being detected was the creation of eerily lifelike dummy heads. These fake heads were so convincing that they fooled the guards during routine head count checks. They were sculpted from an odd mixture of soap, toothpaste, and toilet paper. These heads were carefully shaped to resemble prisoners sleeping. The escapees painted them with skin tones using art supplies stolen from the prison's maintenance shop and added real hair swept from the barbershop floor. These dummy heads were not just clever, they were the key element. During the nightly head counts, the guards didn't wake the inmates but simply looked into the cells for movement. The dummy heads, placed on pillows and partially concealed under blankets, created the perfect illusion of sleep. To complete the deception, the prisoners rolled up clothes and towels under the blankets to simulate the shape of sleeping bodies. The effectiveness was so perfect that it wasn't until the morning count on June 12th that the guards realized something was amiss, and by then, the trio had long since escaped. The deception didn't stop with the dummy heads. It also included the tunnels they had carved into the walls. The inmates used cardboard and papier-mâché made from torn magazine pages from the prison library to create the holes they had been digging over the course of several months, while the prisoners disguised these holes. These fake vents looked like the air vents at the back of their cells. The false vents blended seamlessly into the walls, concealing the escape route that lay behind them. When the guards looked into the cells, they would only see vents that appeared intact, while in reality, behind them was a tunnel leading to freedom. What is even more remarkable about this deception is how it connects to the broader tradition of psychological warfare behind bars, an art of deception cultivated by desperate men in desperate places. In fact, around the world, deceptions have helped break imprisonments, from smuggled letters hidden in hollowed-out books to fake uniforms sewn from laundry scraps. However, few cases can compare to the Alcatraz ruse in terms of detail and performance. FBI Captain Michael Dyke, who worked on the case, commented, "They didn't just escape, they staged a performance," pointing out that this escape involved both psychological and physical tactics. The escapees created a scene that not only dazzled the guards, but also the entire prison system. Their cells became a stage that night, and within hours, the escapees played the role of ghosts, vanishing into thin air. But the deception was just the beginning. The real escape began beneath the surface. Digging the path to freedom. The foundation of the Alcatraz escape plan was truly embedded in the prison's deteriorating infrastructure. Frank Morris, John and Clarence Anglin, and Alan West exploited a crucial weakness: the salt-damaged concrete behind the vent grills under their sinks. Over the course of several months, these men slowly chiseled away at this weak material using simple but creative tools. They stole metal spoons from the dining hall and repurposed used saw blades. Even more impressive was the homemade drill, crafted from a vacuum cleaner motor. Bit by bit, night after night, they dug escape tunnels that would lead to an unmanned maintenance corridor. What made this feat possible wasn't brute strength, but extreme patience and surgical precision. The prisoners worked carefully to avoid detection, placing cardboard and papier-mâché vent covers over the holes during the day. These vent covers were painted to blend with the color of the walls using art materials taken from the prison library, helping them seamlessly integrate into their surroundings. The escapees coordinated their digging to align with the music hour, a daily time when instruments could be played. Morris's accordion, famously loud and wheezy, masked the sounds of scraping and drilling, transforming the prison block into a secret construction zone. Once the holes were large enough to crawl through, the escapees entered the unmanned corridor and made their way to the uppermost floor of the prison, where they set up a secret workshop. Here, they stored materials and worked on other elements of their escape, the raft and paddles. Gaining access to this area was easier due to the deteriorating condition of the prison, which was built on the remnants of old military fortifications. Some former prisoners and later investigators recalled how the foundations of Alcatraz had rotted and cracked, giving these men an advantage to work undisturbed in the old maintenance tunnels. One of the final crucial tasks was reaching the vent at the very top of the building. The prisoners climbed 30 feet using water pipes and bent the vent cover. Then, to avoid suspicion, they created a fake seal from soap and sealed the vent cover. Once again, a backup detail. By the time the escapees put their plan into action, they had actually created a sophisticated path from their cells to the rooftop. Their strategy was not just to escape. It was to exploit the weaknesses that the prison had overlooked, the age and design of the building, against itself. And in doing so, they achieved what no one else could, a stealthy and nearly surgical escape from the rock, the raft made of raincoats and the cold bay. With the escape tunnel completed and the upper floors of the prison successfully navigated, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers still faced their greatest obstacle, the freezing and harsh waters of San Francisco Bay. The temperature ranged from 50–55 degrees, and the currents were famously strong. It was these very conditions that helped Alcatraz earn its reputation as escape-proof. But Morris and the Anglin brothers were not simply escaping from a cell. They were fleeing from a fortress on an island. To do this, they crafted a homemade raft and life jackets using more than 50 stolen raincoats, a prison engineering feat that demonstrated their determination. The raft, measuring about 6'14" feet, was crafted in a makeshift workshop the escapees had set up above the prison block. The raincoats were sewn together with thread taken from the prison's work areas, and the seams were sealed by melting rubber using the air tubes in the prison's piping system. To inflate the raft, they turned a concertina, similar to a small accordion, into a makeshift air pump. Even the paddles were crafted from pieces of plywood, likely scavenged during their work assignments. Everything they needed to challenge the bay was hidden right under their noses. After months of meticulous planning, the trio finally reached the northeastern shore of the island on the night of June 11, 1962. There, they inflated the raft and launched it into the darkness, seizing the opportunity to make their way to Angel Island, less than 2 miles away. While the escape had been silent until the following morning, it gradually revealed clues about their journey. One paddle was discovered by the Coast Guard on June 14th. On the same day, a sealed package containing the personal belongings of the Anglin brothers was found. A week later, pieces of the raft washed up near the Golden Gate Bridge, followed by a homemade life jacket. However, these materials provided no trace of the men. Many officials, such as the prison warden, still believed the escapees had drowned. "Do you hear the wind and do you see the water?" The prison warden at the time, Richard Willard, asked in an interview with the BBC. "Do you think you could have made it?" However, Chambers believed that the sophistication of the raft and the precision of the escapees led to the conclusion that they might have survived. Later scientific analyses suggested that if the escape had been carried out during a narrow tidal window, the escape could have been successful. Whether the bay swallowed them up or they made it to freedom, the raincoat raft remains the most creative symbol of defiance against the most secure prison the United States has ever built. Allen West, the one left behind. Allen West was initially one of the 4 prisoners involved in the Great Alcatraz escape plan, but ultimately, he was unable to break out. A longtime inmate at Alcatraz since 1957, West knew Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers from previous prison sentences, and their time-sharing neighboring cells allowed them to form their plan. West was involved in every stage, boring through the weak wall behind his sink, helping gather materials for the raft and the dummy heads, and contributing to the construction of the escape route. But on the crucial night of June 11, 1962, West was unable to cut through the final piece of concrete in time. According to his own confession, West's tunnel was too narrow. He either miscalculated the size or couldn't completely remove the last piece of cement. As he struggled to widen the hole in panic, the others could not wait any longer. With time running out and dawn approaching, Morris and the Anglin brothers continued without him. West remained in his cell, fully aware that his once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was slipping away. His fate was not determined by fear, but by the smallest physical obstacle, the few inches of decaying concrete that simply wouldn't give way. The next morning, the guards discovered that a prison break had occurred, and immediately West cooperated with the police officials. He provided a detailed description of the escape plan, outlining the route to the utility corridor, the path through the roof, and their destination, Angel Island. His testimony became the basis for the subsequent manhunt. According to the BBC, this led West to point out evidence such as the paddles and belongings of the Anglin brothers. However, none of the escapees were found, which raised doubts that they had anticipated West's presence in the escape and altered their route to avoid being caught if he talked. Allen West had to bear the burden of a plan that was almost completed. While he avoided the risk of freezing in the dangerous waters, he gave up the chance to escape to freedom. After the failed escape, West was processed when Alcatraz closed in 1963 and completed his sentence. Although often overshadowed by those who seemingly disappeared, his role was central to the escape, as he provided the most complete insider account of it. In the legendary story of Alcatraz, West stands as a living witness to an escape that could have succeeded. A chilling confession or a clever ruse? In 2013, more than 50 years after the escape that shocked the world, a new twist reignited interest in the Alcatraz mystery. A letter, purportedly written by John Anglin, was sent to the San Francisco Police Department. The letter read, "I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all escaped that night, but just barely. The letter claimed that Frank Morris had died in 2005, Clarence Anglin in 2008, and that John was suffering from a terminal illness and was willing to negotiate a surrender in exchange for medical treatment. This message sparked a new wave of speculation and prompted law enforcement to reconsider a case that had been considered closed for decades. The FBI quietly reopened the investigation. The letter was subjected to forensic examination. Handwriting analysis, fingerprint testing, and DNA analysis were all conducted to determine if the confession could be legitimate. However, despite the efforts, the results remained inconclusive. The handwriting did not match exactly with samples from Anglin or Morris, and no fingerprints or DNA could be confirmed. This ambiguity left the case hanging between belief and doubt. The letter was convincing enough to suggest it might be real, but lacked the concrete evidence needed to prove its authenticity. The general public remained unaware of the letter's existence until 2018, when the story was revealed by local CBS station KPIX. The timing and content of the letter, along with decades of suspicious sightings and claims from family members, breathed new life into a mystery that refused to die. Even before the letter emerged, the Anglin family had claimed to have received Christmas cards from the two brothers, and there was a controversial 1975 photograph showing John and Clarence in Brazil. The content of the letter, with its eerie references to survival, moving across states, and living a reclusive life, might be the most compelling evidence yet that the escape could have been successful. U.S. law enforcement, technically still keeping the case open, has left all doors ajar. As recently as 2022, they released age-progressed sketches of Morris and the Anglin brothers to simulate what they might look like today, with public appeals for new leads. Some investigators and officials still believe the men perished in the bay, but others argue there are too many unanswered questions to consider the case closed. Whether it's a genuine confession or a clever ruse, the 2013 letter has brought attention back to the pages of the Alcatraz legend, and perhaps brought us closer to the truth than any letter before it. What makes the 2013 letter particularly fascinating is how it fits into the broader cultural fascination with missing criminals and unsolved mysteries. In an era of maximum surveillance, nearly absolute digital traces, and largely diminished public interest, it seems almost legendary that three people could disappear after committing a crime, hiding in the shadows for decades, so to speak. This evokes romantic legends of many criminals, D.B. Cooper, why not Billy the Kid, criminals who have become pop culture icons. An old proverb, "When the weak can defeat the system, people love a mystery," quoted by Michael Dyke, a former U.S. Marshal, in an interview in 2016. This attraction is not only because of the theory that these men might have survived, it also speaks to the philosophy that there are cracks in a rigid institution where a small gap of freedom might still exist. When the trail seemed to grow cold, science found what legend could not. For decades, the prevailing belief among prison authorities and federal investigators was that Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers did not survive their escape from Alcatraz. The cold, strong waters of San Francisco Bay were seen as a natural barrier that could not be overcome. Director Richard Willard expressed this sentiment in a 1964 BBC interview, critically asking, "Do you think you could make it?" Like many at the time, he believed that even if the men had left the island, the water would have swallowed them. This belief ultimately supported the FBI's decision to close the case in 1979, declaring that the escapees had legally died. But over the following decades, this hardline view was increasingly challenged by science. In 2014, a group of Dutch researchers used advanced computer modeling to recreate the tidal conditions on the night of June 11, 1962. They discovered that if the escapees had launched their raft between 11 p.m. and midnight, a time frame that matched the estimated time of departure, they could have been carried by the current toward Angel Island. This simulation contradicted the long-held story that the waters were impassable, presenting a plausible survival scenario if the men had been precise with their timing. This scientific leap rekindled interest and shed new light on the rumors and sightings that had persisted for decades. Following the findings from the Dutch study, the 2013 letter claiming that the men survived and lived a life in hiding gained renewed attention. Along with the evidence that had been discovered, such as the recovered paddle, personal belongings, and pieces of the raft, it is now possible to believe they may have made it to safety. Not only was the escape physically feasible, it might have succeeded if carried out with the level of detail the men demonstrated throughout the rest of their plan. As evidence and science continue to be added to the case, what undermines the credibility of the U.S. Marshals is their determination that criminals like Morris and the Anglin brothers wouldn't be able to disappear into peaceful, law-abiding lives. However, the case remains open. As recently as 2022, new age-progressed photos of the three men were released, indicating that law enforcement has not given up on the search for the escapees. Science may have uncovered the truth, or something profoundly practical, hidden beneath this event. The Alcatraz escape stands firm as one of the most fascinating unresolved mysteries in America. A story where truth and possibility continue to battle for dominance. Beyond tide charts and forensic recreations, the intrigue surrounding the Alcatraz escape speaks to something deeper in American culture. A national obsession with beating the system. So, have we gotten closer to the truth about this famous escape? Or is it just another part of a legend with no answers? No matter what theory you believe, the mystery of Alcatraz will continue to haunt and capture our attention. New clues, scientific discoveries, and declassified documents have opened a new chapter in this story. But can it ever truly be solved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay tuned for more fascinating videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.